Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, March 7th, 2023. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. The lovely visage of Steve Wiltfong, Director of Recruiting for 24/7 Sports, is here. Steve, how goes it?
Good morning, Daniel. Doing all right? You guys?
We are good. You are rested and refreshed, I hope, after a vacation, sunning yourself on the sunny shores of?
Oh, man, I was here in Zionsville,
No
chasing
shores.
kids around. No, my oldest kid didn't have school for the week. My wife was busy at work, so I took the week off and held it down.
Steve usually takes off the post-recruiting cycle week. That cycle has been much more hard to pin down, so Steve's schedule has been hectic, that's for sure. But we are going to go over some crazy stuff today, some interesting stuff. Mind you, today is the start of spring practice here at Ohio State. Dave Biddle, Steve Helwagen, and Patrick Murphy are on the case. They are currently there. They will actually do a podcast live after the practice. So that way, everything that went down there, what limited ability to see the new guys in uniform, etc., they will see. There are some recruits there today visiting, obviously. And we're going to talk about them and some other stuff. The show might not be the usual 30-minute Marconi award-winning effort that Steve and I put forth, given that we're going to have two podcasts today and don't want to bore you. But some of the guys on campus today, one guy who's really been in the news lately who we'd like to speak about is Sam Williams Dixon. We know Ohio State is focused on beefing up their running back room, and Sam Williams Dixon is one of two Ohioans at running back to get an offer. Not the most common thing to happen in Ohio. We know Jordan Marshall at Moeller, and we know Sam Williams Dixon at West Holmes. Now we know Sam Williams Dixon at Pickerington North. He has transferred. West Holmes is like going from a small, if you're doing colleges, it'd be a small Division II school to a big Division I, Big Ten-ish school like Pick North. Your thoughts on Sam Williams Dixon? Very impressive to me that he's making the move after he got the offer, which means he's just doing it to improve. So your thoughts on Sam Williams Dixon, maybe what you think of Jordan Marshall and how that might work out.
Well, Sam, 76 touchdowns over the last two seasons. Excited to see what he'll do over there at Pickerington. Top five, you got Tennessee, Kentucky, Penn State, Ohio State, and Rutgers in there. This is a young man that can run between the tackles. He can catch the football. He's got a complete skill set. I saw him at the Best of the Midwest Combine 2 years ago and had him as one of the top performers at that event. And this is a guy that Ohio State likes. I think Ohio State's in good position for several running backs, and this is one of them. I think that Ohio State is in terrific shape for James Peoples out of San Antonio, Texas, top 247 back from Veterans Memorial. I think they're in the top 2 or 3 for Jordan Marshall out of Archbishop Moeller. So they're swinging at quite a few guys, but Sam Williams Dixon is a guy that they're obviously in great shape for going into today's visit.
It kind of reminds me of a few years ago when they had Travion Henderson, Donovan Edwards, and Evan Pryor, and it was almost like first come, first serve. They're probably not going to take 3 running backs, but like you mentioned, there's offers out to 2 excellent Ohioans and then some really impressive guys. James Peoples, you mentioned. We've done some stuff on the kid at Aquinas too, so they are in on some big timers. Other guys that are going to be here today, Mark Nave, offensive lineman out of Toledo. But there is a guy coming in, and I don't know if I would mention him otherwise. He's from the mean streets of Zionsville, Indiana, so you know he's tough. And that is Eugene Hilton.
Yeah, son of T.Y. Hilton of Indianapolis Colts fame, played this past season with the Dallas Cowboys, a guy that's kind of had a breakout varsity year as a sophomore this year, caught 49 passes for nearly 600 yards and 5 touchdowns, a smooth pass catcher with some physicality after the catch. Just was reoffered by the Purdue staff on a return to Purdue's campus this weekend. And, Ohio State keeping tabs on him, and we'll get him to campus today, as you said.
I don't know if I would have brought him up if he wasn't T.Y. Hilton's son or he wasn't from the same streets that Steve's sons are earning their tricks on. So you want to raise a tough son or a kid who knows how to get it done. Zionsville, Indiana is your spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unfortunately, you
right.
got to get into a tax bracket that some of us will never see. So we can just jest about pro athletes and director of media company wings that just country club it up. Anyway, other guys that will be here are not as much on the main trick here. So we're going to talk about some other guys that Steve knows a little bit about. One name from Indiana, now that we're there, is Milan Graham. Ohio State is recruiting wide receiver, obviously, to say at the national level would be kind of silly. It's almost like the interplanetary level. In fact, yesterday, a couple of days ago, we did a Buckeye in the Sky on Damarian Witten, the tight end from Glenville. And one of the comments on there was, wow, I would even take him as a wide receiver if he wasn't a tight end. And Mark Porter came in there and said, listen, he's a great tight end, but he's not. If you want to talk receiver at Ohio State, you got to go. You can't be getting guys who are – you're going to the national level. Is Milan Graham, considering – I mean, Jeremiah Smith from Florida. We hear about the South Florida Express guys, et cetera. Is Milan Graham in the mix with those type of prospects from a talent perspective?
Look, Ohio State discovered Mylan Graham. He came to camp, no offers. I doubt Brian Hartline and Ryan Day and company knew his name before he walked into camp that day, but he put on an absolute show, and he'll be memorable to Hartline and company forever as a young man that came and made a name for himself. And they offered him a scholarship at camp because of his performance, but it was one with the caveat of, hey, man, you were a stud out here. We have to offer you, but I haven't even watched your film yet. So if your film sucks, we might have to walk this back a little.
You just had the day of your life. You're screwed.
But naturally, if you go out and do your thing at Ohio State, you're not going to lay down bad tape, right? And as a junior, Mylan had a big year, 48 catches for nearly 1,200 yards, 13 touchdowns. He went to Alabama's camp and earned an offer there as well. So he's a performer. He's a smooth pass catcher that can go up and get the football with a lot of developmental upside. And I love Ohio State's position. This new Purdue staff is going hard right now. Ryan Walters and company, they're working hard, building connections with top targets. They just had Mylan on campus this past weekend, and we've seen Purdue under past coaching staffs win heavyweight recruiting battles for in-state recruits. I mean, David Bell's won that Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan, Notre Dame offered. He went to Purdue. So, I mean, Purdue's real competition for Milan Graham, led by Corey Patterson's efforts. Georgia's in the mix for Milan Graham. Tennessee's another program that they've mentioned. So there's quite a few schools in there, but I think Ohio State has set the tone in this recruitment, and I like where they're positioned going into another visit to Columbus.
Yeah, that's some good stuff there. That's very interesting. I love the idea that he got the offers based purely on eye test. You know what I mean? It's kind of inverted from the way things work these days. That doesn't sound like a very common story now with the names that have gotten out. I can't even remember a guy who could get – do you remember guys who have come to Ohio State or Alabama almost unknown? That's kind of rare, isn't it, for these days?
I mean, guys have come to Ohio State's camp that the Ohio State staff has known beforehand.
Right.
And they had him in camp with the sole purpose of evaluating him and determining if they're going to offer this young man a scholarship or not. I think Milan Graham just showed up to camp.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
Could not be ignored. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm embellishing what happened, but I don't think I am. And
we never heard of him.
There's been many a story, unfortunately, of kids coming to camps across the country and having good performances, and it doesn't go noticed because the coaches aren't even watching you because they don't know who you are, right?
Oh, yeah.
So you have to really flash to get attention if you're an unknown. And, I mean,
that's a great point, man.
Obviously.
It really is.
Because you're watching who you know, man.
Exactly. That's for every sport. And I don't know. The idea that you're going to an open tryout is kind of a myth.
And I don't know how many people were at that camp. And Mylan went there with Austin Mack's old receivers coach. So he was in the right stable, right? Okay. So Dre Muhammad brought some guys over there. And so I don't know if it was an elite camp or just a standard camp or what, but Brian Hartline was working and Mylan Graham was working, and the two may eventually work together.
Yeah, the dynamic you're explaining right there is the express reason that Glenville holds their guys from committing and takes them on the trip with other dudes from the high school, because then when you get to campus and Bryce West is working out, all the coaches are coming over to check it out. You have the other Glenville guys there who may not have the high profile. And like you said, people would be surprised. I mean, Ohio State obviously has the ability to decipher talent, but you got to have a reputation with this many kids there, or it's just overwhelming. If you ever been to an outdoor Ohio State camp, it looks like a military operation with the amount of people. And then they pull into the WAC the players they really want to focus on. We've talked about that one day when it was Terry McLaurin, Eric Glover-Williams, Mike Gesicki, Paris Campbell, and they sent Terry McLaurin home and said, you need to work harder to get a scholarship, and offered Eric Glover-Williams. So not always 100% on it.
Look, and Eric Glover-Williams was talented, man.
He was a stud.
So it's college football is not just about how talented you are. There's a lot of factors that go into what determines who will be a great football player, depending on your various positions, understanding the scheme, understanding how that play call evolves based on what the defense is showing you. And so there, workout, there's all kinds of things that factor into what makes you a great player. And Terry McLaurin's elite at damn near everything. It just wasn't obvious when he was a junior in high school. But look, he earned his opportunity and then rose to the top at receiver U. So he was never the best receiver on Ohio State's team. Yet he is
never more than third in the depth chart.
He is but he made big plays in big games for them, and certainly showed up for them every weekend. I mean, he was a hell of a player, man.
He's great.
He's had great players around him, and but you mentioned another name I wanted to touch on, Bryce West. I saw Bryce West earlier this month at the Best of the Midwest Combine, him and Demarion Witten. And with Bryce West, obviously I think Ohio State's one of his top schools. He loves being on campus, loves the treatment that Ohio guys get there, knows a lot of the guys in the locker room, certainly knows what the program stands for, and is excited about them. He's excited to get out west this month. They're going to go to Oregon. They're going to check out USC. And I think those schools are contenders too. Michigan's obvious one. And then, like you said, Glenville, this thing's not going to get announced anytime soon now.
Exactly.
I think this bad boy go all the way to December, whatever the hell signing period is this year. Too close to the holiday season, in my opinion. They need to make sure it's never past the 15th. But
we had a commitment on Christmas once.
I get no say on any of that.
No, you don't. Nor do I. I will say this. That is who were we just talking about right there?
Bryce West.
Bryce West. I spaced for a minute there. Bryce West just competed in the Ohio State track meet, and my man can fly. That is not his track times. Like, he could quit football and train to run for the Olympics if he really wanted to do that. I'm not saying he'd make it, but he's one of those guys that if he was a track guy and he went in on that, and people would be like, that's a reasonable attempt. So you're talking about out at corner, and he's got the body too. You want to get must get in there, but Bryce West obviously is a must get, and Aaron Scott is a must get. And then we had a review that said KJ Bolden is even better at corner than those two, which blows me away.
Well, Ohio State's recruiting KJ Bolden as a nickel, someone that can be versatile across the secondary. He's not just pigeonholed to safety. He's a guy that can do a lot of things, including be physical and play around the line of scrimmage. And look, he could play receiver at a high level as well.
We talked about that. He's the kind of guy you say to whatever you want to do, go both ways, only play offense. That's fine.
And also obviously be a factor on special teams as well. So look, Ohio State's near the top of KJ Bolden's list. He's just coming off of a visit to Arkansas that says we'll bring him back to Fayetteville. But I think you got Georgia, you got Ohio State, got some Clemson in there, Alabama, Tennessee. So Florida State, Auburn trying to make a move there as well. He's still receptive to a lot of programs. I think Ohio State's closer to the top, and I think in addition to his June official visit, you'll see him on campus for a spring practice.
Yeah, he's been on campus a few times, and of course, he's a safety, and our safeties coach is his cousin. So I said to someone else, I wonder if when you have your own office and you have a desk and a chair, and the boss comes into your office and sits down at your chair, it always makes you kind of like sit up a little bit. And I wonder if Ryan Day has come in there, sat down, and talked about how we should probably attract people that are our relatives and get them into the fold. So
that's what happens. That's what happens in the Wiltfong house when Kelly Wiltfong walks into this office.
She sits down, and you kind of.
I become very attentive.
Yeah, we all do, dude. Don't worry about that. Let's finish with this. There's been chatter when certain guys have come up, and you know how it is in recruiting. They say, "Oh, you have no chance." One of those guys that it seems like the experts like yourself tell us we have a chance for, and that our users can't seem to believe we have a chance for, is Sammy Brown. He's a Georgia native. Is that correct?
Yeah, look, Ohio State's obviously on the short list. He's been to Ohio State a couple times. Very genuine about his excitement for the Buckeyes program. Coach Knowles and company have made an impression. He's been to some great game day environments, Ohio State being one of them. He's coming back for an official visit. You guys are a finalist. I just don't want to get anyone's hopes up, right? We'll see what happens with these official visits.
But they have a chance. I'm saying when people write, are more negative posters or like, "Oh, we have no chance. You're wasting your time." I wouldn't say it's a waste of time.
It's never a waste of time because you just never know what's going to happen in the landscape of college football. And look,
he's worth the wait if they get him, believe me.
Sure. And I mean, you're Ohio State. You're not scared to recruit against anybody, and Sammy Brown's a fit at Ohio State. But, Georgia and Clemson are recruiting the hell out of him too now, and he's got great relationships with their head coaches and with their defensive coordinators. And Georgia's defensive coordinator also happens to be a linebacker guy in Glenn Schumann. So, that's a tough battle, but Ohio State, those are the ones you fight. And,
if it was inverted and Sammy Brown was from Ohio, I wouldn't feel.
Did people say no chance on Raekwon McMillan?
I'd have to go back and look at that one. I'll be honest with you, and I'm not saying this to be negative about anyone currently. We never said no chance when it came to the herb.
Oh, yeah, good point.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I hear what you're saying.
No,
he gave me this false sense. Maybe it was a false sense.
No, sometimes you need a reminder of that.
Yeah.
Even like the Ohio State recruiting media walked a little taller back then. I remember. It's like, yeah, I'll interview this guy. It's Ohio State. We got a chance at him.
And you know what? He
like you wasted. I'm trying to ask this guy about 3 schools that he's really gonna go to. And, I'll ask him about Ohio State.
Right.
We got a chance. We got Urban.
Yeah, I mean that's how much charisma Urban had. He didn't just give confidence to the program. He gave confidence to the media. You want to talk about making people better? That is some impressive stuff. I got 2 questions.
He got lettuce and tomato on his burgers back when Urban Meyer.
Listen, he may have even had dessert. He may have had the cookie. By the way, just so you know, most media setups, if you're not there before the dessert gets there, you're not getting any. Trust me. The Redskins games, they put out cookies at halftime. If you didn't go middle of the second quarter, you're going to lose a digit. So not usually the most svelte crowd. Steve and I are probably going to be skill players on the media team. Let's just be honest. I had some good questions here. Chad Stryker. I'd be interested in Steve's thoughts on Air Noland. Prentice Air Noland out of Langston Hughes.
Yeah,
I've read he has the quickest release of any of the 24 quarterbacks and seems to be climbing up the boards. He is a lefty, same high school as Jelani Thurman. I wanted to bring him up earlier, and that's why I blanked, because you were talking about Purdue, and I know Aaron Nolan is actually scheduled a visit to Purdue, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, we'll see what happens there, because Purdue just landed a quarterback, a 24/7 Sports 4-star from Texas, Marcos Davila, who had a really good junior year as well. So Purdue, that, like I said, there's some excitement around that program if you guys want to talk a little Big Ten here. But Ohio State is going to get Aaron Nolan on campus. this month. He does not have an offer yet, but it seems to be trending positively. Ryan Day and Corey Dennis and company went down to the Peach State and have seen him, obviously, because of his teammates. And look, he had a fantastic junior year. 55 touchdown passes, over 4,000 yards passing.
Undefeated.
Say what?
Undefeated. 15-0 in Georgia.
State, yep, that means it ends with the state championship. And in addition to that, this kid's got an electric personality. I mean, he is. I'm very fortunate to have talked to a lot of the top prospects in the country, and most of them are great kids. Air Noland stands out. I mean, he's just got a lot of juice to him, a lot of energy, a lot of positive vibes, and he's a very confident young man too. So it'll be interesting to see what Ohio State chooses to do, but they're obviously interested in him. They're going to bring him up and spend some real time with him. And he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country. And anytime Ohio State offers a quarterback, they always have a chance with Ryan Day's track record, what they've done at the position, the offense, and how exciting it is to play in. You're going to have great playmakers around you at Ohio State. So Air Noland, I mean, he's definitely highly interested in Ohio State. I mean, he's a young man that's got a bunch of offers. He's coming to visit a program that hasn't offered yet. So I think that's pretty telling. Now, we'll see what happens coming out of the visit, because Miami's done a good job here. Texas A&M's done a good job here. He enjoyed his visit to Alabama, where he was offered in person in January. They've talked about taking 2 quarterbacks. Ohio State's offered Alabama's other quarterback commit in Julian Sayans. So, look, there's going to be movement. I mean, you look at the top 10 quarterbacks in the 2023 class, there was a lot of movement.
Yeah.
We've already seen some decommitments in 2024, obviously. So, we'll see what happens with how this quarterback position shakes out. But Air Noland is a terrific name on the board, and a guy that I think is, in what is a down year at quarterback, a guy that would be a blue chip recruit in last year's cycle.
I'll go on the record here, and I have nothing to back this up, but I do think Air Noland is going to be the quarterback in Ohio State's class. I just am basing that on my vibes. That is not Steve Wiltfong. That is Dan Rubin, for those of you who are going to aggregate, but feel very good about that. All right, last question. We talked about this with Andrew Ivins, and there's no way to really know this yet because things are so much up in the air, but Cincinnati Taft defensive end / outside linebacker / edge presence, Elias Rudolph, has transferred to Deerfield Beach in Florida. Andrew tells me that this is not like someone transferring to IMG or American Heritage. Deerfield Beach, not necessarily a cresting program, so it was a little bit surprising. But do you think that will affect Ohio State's quest to get him on campus and to get him to commit? Or I got the understanding of my general sense is this was almost a move to be near the sunshine rather than near the gridiron. But I defer to the recruiting expert that you are.
Yep. Well, I am not an expert on this subject. I have no idea. So I'm going to tactfully pivot to Booker Pickett, another edge rusher from Tampa, Florida. He's the number 5 edge rusher in the country, number 52 player overall. Had a chance to talk to him this past week, and he's got close to 40 offers from many of the nation's best programs. And I asked him what programs are recruiting him the hardest, and he said Ohio State. Tony Alford's been recruiting Florida in that Tampa area forever. Larry Johnson is in the middle of that one. Obviously, his uncle was a great player at Ohio State. And I think the Buckeyes have a great chance to land Booker Pickett Jr. Now, of course, there's major competition. Georgia, Miami are some of the schools off the top of my head that I know he's high on. South Carolina is another one. But Ohio State in the middle of it for Booker Pickett, who's been as disruptive a player behind the line of scrimmage in the state of Florida as anybody. He's got 52 tackles or 52 sacks over the last 2 seasons, Dan. And we've seen Ohio State go down into Florida and land elite pass rushers recently, and perhaps they do that again with Booker Pickett Jr.
Here's what's interesting about Pickett. Ohio State, since Urban Meyer arrived, the aforementioned, obviously beefed up their recruiting efforts nationally and really in Florida. But before that, they would take the occasional guy from Florida, and Pickett was one of those guys. So that's relatively interesting. When they got him out of Florida in the past, I think if you go back and look at that recruiting class, he may have been the only guy from Florida in the group. Whereas now, if you look, Ohio State has more offers out to Florida guys than Ohio guys. Standing next to Pickett, give us a sense of how big he is. Do you think he's a legit edge rusher? For example, Ryan Shazier led Florida in sacks at defensive end at about 210 pounds, and they flipped him inside at linebacker. Let's finish with what you thought of Pickett on the hoof.
Well, I have not seen him on the hoof yet, but Andrew Ivins,
Right.
my colleague, has him at over 6'3" a hair and roughly around 205 pounds. And, I mean, I think
that's a weird spot then, don't you think?
Well, I mean, he's a guy that's got a unique trait, though. He can go get the quarterback.
He sounds – we're basically describing the high school Ryan Shazier, by the way. And that's what he did. Stood on the edge at 210 pounds and just werewolfed it. I just don't know if you can play the edge at that size, although, like you said, they'll wait for you if you have that pass rush skill.
Look, there were question marks about what Kaden Curry could do too,
Yeah.
But I mean, they're in a motor that runs as hot as Kaden Curry's. I've been fortunate enough to cover high school football for roughly 23 years. It's unbelievable that I've been a sports writer that long. Started answering the phone at the South Bend Tribune at 17 years old, and Kaden Curry plays the game as hard as anybody I remember. And looks like it's starting to show up in a big way at Ohio State as he goes into the second year of his career, right?
Let's finish there with that. Kaden Curry is on the field. Is he on the field right now? I'm not exactly sure, but he was today, and our staff was there. It was the first day of spring practice. Guys like Kaden Curry, we cannot wait to see. I'm serious. I would pay money to go watch Kaden Curry practice, given what I've heard. I'm just telling you.
Yep, and y'all know I root for the Indianapolis players the most. My favorite players have been McLaurin, Pete Werner.
You have a Pete Warren Saints jersey.
Big DeWand, and now that baton has been passed to Kaden Curry. Look forward to seeing him do big things for y'all.
Yeah, as I watched DeWan Jones go through the combine, I constantly think back to you telling me how you felt we missed and everybody missed.
Humongous regret. And honestly, I brought his name up to Charles Power, and Charles and I still kind of talk about it. It's not like I knew that he was going to, I just wanted to put a 4th star on him, but I didn't fight too much for it because I didn't want to come across as a homer. And he was raw, it wasn't like he was a great football player in high school. But, man, I mean, he was one of the best basketball players in the state.
And that's a statement, by the way, people.
Exactly.
Indianans don't say that with light heart.
In Indiana, high school basketball coaching is like Texas high school football coaching in the city of Indianapolis area. The coaching's off the charts. The games are phenomenal.
Yeah, it's great.
And, DeWan was an Indiana All-Star, if I remember correctly, and had good feet and was, could maneuver in the paint. He wasn't just some big brute collecting 5 fouls. Now he's running the floor and
got some touch.
Being nimble around the basket and playing with touch. And so I just regret that one too. But hey, man, I'm glad he went to Ohio State and stuck it out. There were times where he thought about transferring, because he wasn't starting right away because it was talented. And I know Kevin Wilson and some of those guys had to talk him off the ledge a little bit, and that might be a little bit dramatic, but I know for a fact there were times
when you think.
There were times where DeWan Jones was close to exploring the portal, and look, it worked out for him. Played in the college football playoff, got developed. Gonna hear his name called in the draft, and it was a good run for him at Ohio State, and on to the next group.
I think he's going to get picked in the beginning of the 2nd round, which is incredible. And I will just say this, Keonta Goodwin should have paid attention because he didn't. And look where he is now. Had he chosen the right program, maybe he'd be on his way to making millions, and he could still be for all we know. We appreciate the millionaire himself stopping by, the director of recruiting for 24/7 Sports, Steve Wiltfong. His eyes were raised.
Not a millionaire.
Not yet. I'll bet on him. We appreciate him stopping by. Once again, people, spring practice has sprung. There will be a live pod here with Dave and Pat and Steve afterwards with all their eyewitness accounts of practice. Keep it locked in here. Have a good one, Bucknutters. Take care.
Take care. See you on the front row.